Hey guys, I made it. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. So I just got stuck for just a bogus traffic ticket in court this morning, and everybody got stuck in front of me. But I made it. What time is it? It's 11:04. So I'm like 4 minutes late. So that's good. My mic's on. Looks like everything's working. Hope you guys can hear me okay. So today I wanted to talk about relationships and welcome to, first of all, welcome to the Heart-Centered Masterclass. That's a once a week class that I run live on my YouTube channel for those of you who are interested in, how to free yourselves energetically. It can take a long time, especially to expand our abilities to express the love for one another. And, the more, I should say, expansive our love can be for one another, then that's what we get in return. It's a learning process on how we're loving one another and to accept one another for the way we are, and just being there for one another. And doing that will expand your awareness. We don't sit in judgment of one another, because our awareness expands and we start to understand each other in a more profound way, because we get to understand more parts of ourselves. And so today I really want to tell a story about my dad. My dad's in a nursing home right now. I've lived with my dad for the last 10 years. And at this point, hello puppy. Yes. Yeah, I was gone for all morning, and so she was upset. My son's with me this weekend, and he's got this little, I don't know, you guys can't see her. This little red min pin. She's a cutie. Anyway, she's gonna lay down. My dad's in the nursing home right now because about 3 weeks ago, and I don't know how much of this I talked about last week. Last week I had to let the video go. I couldn't make that video. But he started falling down a lot around the house. And I've lived with him for 10 years. My mom died in 2017. So I moved back home with my parents just as my mom was getting sick. And I tried to, we tried to help her, but she died of cancer in 2017. So I've lived with my dad ever since then. He's, so he was in his 70s during that time, and now he's 81. He was falling down recently, about 4 weeks ago, and just beating himself up, scraping himself up. And so I took him to the hospital and found out that he had low sodium again. He's done this a couple times where his sodium levels have dropped to where he's, if your electrolytes levels drop to a certain level, you can't function. Your mind stops working. Your risk at stroke when your electrolytes get that low. Yeah, because your heart, your brain, everything stops working. We need electrolytes for electrical signals to run through the body, and then when our electrolytes get too low, specifically sodium, then you get at risk of stroke or heart attack. Or the first time he did it, he was down to 108, and the doctors were actually surprised that he was still conscious. They were really worried that he was going to have a stroke the first time he did it. And this time I could tell that something was off with him. He's in a low cognitive decline over the last several years, and it's caused him to, just, you get older, right? We become more childlike when we get older. And after that, I took him to the hospital. He had low sodium, but he also had a really high white blood cell count. We found out that he had gallstones stuck in his bile duct. I'm going to turn my phone down for you guys. So there was only one doctor in the area, or there wasn't any doctors locally that could take gallstones out of your bile duct. It's not a big deal if you have gallstones in your gallbladder. A lot of doctors will do gallbladder removals. But when they're stuck in the bile duct, then infection starts to back up behind it, and you have risk of turning septic. So we had to life flight him to Seattle so that he could get a surgeon to. They use a probe, and I think they go all the way from your mouth, all the way through your stomach, and then they go up the bile duct and then break the gallstones loose and pull them out. Well, he went through 3 surgeries. He was in bed for a week. And so, when Dad woke up, he was very childlike and, crying because he didn't understand where he was at. All of a sudden, he woke up in a hospital away from friends and family. I wasn't there when he woke up, but I tried to get there as soon as I could. I showed up the next day so that he could. Actually, I showed up the same day that he woke up for the first time when he was at the University of Washington Hospital, and he was just very sensitive, right? Because he wasn't sure what was happening to him. He had when you're low sodium, your memory kind of goes haywire. He didn't even remember how he got to the hospital. He thought maybe somebody just found him laying down at the house. And so, you're very insecure when something like that happens. You don't understand what you did to yourself or what happened to you. Maybe you don't know if you got in a car accident or something. And so, for the first couple of days that I spent with him after he woke up, he kept saying, he'd look at me and he'd say, I'm sorry for ever, getting mad at you, Bugs, or because he always used to call me Bugs. My brother and I were the 2 oldest brothers, and I was Bugs and he was Buns, so it was always Bugs and Buns growing up. And we have one younger brother who's born 10 years after me, but and Andy never had as much of a nickname. It was always Bugs and Buns, and then Ken talks about it. Yeah, I can talk about this. But Ken says, when as he was getting older, he went through 3 stages. He went from Buns to Professor Buns, and then it was, I don't know, there was another one. Anyway, side issue. But the nicknames and the ways that he used to treat us when he was younger, he started to feel guilty about. And this is the point of this story, is he started to feel guilty about this at an older age. And I tried to encourage him. I said, you don't need to worry about any of those things the way you were, Dad. I'm not mad at you. And if it looked like, at times, because he loved to argue. My dad loved to argue more than just about any other person I've ever been around, except for his older brothers and his nieces and nephews that were just like, they're all Curtises. They just love to argue, compete, and try to be the person that's right in the room. But my dad has a specific learning disability where he kind of turns around things in his mind, and he misunderstands a lot of times what people are saying because he's always got stuff running in the background. And there's a lot of people that are that way. All of us have learning disabilities based on usually the environment that we're in. And if we're not communicating well with one another, especially with our parents, and our parents aren't communicating love for us and supporting us in our own growth, then a lot of times we end up with communication issues, before we get older. But those things that we have to overcome also represent our own personal growth. And I would never, and this is something that I've learned, I will never think negatively about my father for anything that he put me through that forced me to grow. Because what would be the point of that? Life is about growing and evolving and learning how to love ourselves and love one another in a more profound way. So how could I ever not care about somebody that forced me to grow, or that was put there for a very specific reason for me in a very specific way? So I always encourage people to think from a higher perspective. The things that the people that are put in our lives are put in our lives for a reason. And the things that we have to overcome represent some of the most powerful avenues for growth in how we love ourselves and one another. And there's really no reason not to love ourselves, because when it comes down to it, like you might have seen in previous videos, we're just a center of awareness in an infinite field of intelligence. Field being the emotional aspect and spiritual aspect. Field is portrayed in a lot of different levels. And then intelligence is the structure that represents itself in a lot of different levels. And there's no reason why you wouldn't ever love any level of growth. If you realize that we're just a point of awareness in an infinite field of structure, then for one thing, you have access to the whole thing. And on another note, you can provide for the whole thing if you become more and more self-aware. There isn't anything that you can't provide for, because your heart is instantaneously connected with every other point in space-time. Space-time is non-local. And so that's why it's so important to be able to surrender to your heart and let your heart speak when you're interacting with anybody or anything. This little puppy dog over here, or the birds. Our minds will fixate on, a fear or, some kind of anxiety that we don't understand, but the heart is always present. It's never worried about tomorrow. It's never thinking about what yesterday's bringing. The heart's never worried about what it's receiving. Our hearts pump in the body, and blood filters through the body, and then our lungs inhale and provide oxygen for blood, and then it comes back through the heart. But if our lungs are failing, our heart doesn't stop providing blood to the lungs just because the lungs are not working as well. So the heart does not judge, and the heart is the center of everything that we see. Everything that you look at, whether you're looking at a galaxy, a person, a bug, a tree, all of it is coming from the heart. And then it creates a return circuit that creates the roots of that system. So our own roots are below our heart right here in the body. And so that's our return circuit. It's what we're receiving. And that's why we interact with the physical reality in the bottom chakras below our heart, whether it's our root chakra, sacral chakra, or solar plexus chakra. And then everything on the top side of the heart is non-physical. It's exactly like a precipitation model where water evaporates, and then it precipitates, and it rains down, and then it comes back in. Very interesting if you think about it that way. The water cycle is almost identical to the way we provide non-physical energy. Right? My words are non-physical. My thoughts are non-physical. My crown chakra on up. Everything is non-physical coming out. And it has to be in alignment because everything comes back to one point. My brother and I were having this discussion the other day when we traveled up to see my dad for the first time. And on the way back, we were talking about, well, what's good for us and what's not good for us. Well, we do. Obviously, none of us like to go through pain, but growth is painful. There's nothing that you can do about it. You can't get away from the pain of growth. And so, basically, there isn't anything that won't take you back to your center. It has to. There isn't anything that can move away from its own center. So everything that we create comes back to us right in our center. And it dictates where our heart's at and who we are. So I really didn't have much more to say about that today, other than I love my dad. And I love him. I love him much more profoundly now than I ever did before. Yeah. And I pray for you guys to understand, that people do things unconsciously. We all do things unconsciously. And we're not conscious of what we're doing to ourselves. We're killing ourselves unconsciously. So ideally, We want to get to a place where we're no longer killing ourselves unconsciously. I don't think any of us really want to go through pain, but death is just a transformation. And if we voluntarily decide to transform internally and get out of a state of judgment and then see it from a higher perspective, then we can get to higher states of awareness where we understand that the heart can provide for anything. And if two people are in surrender to one another, that's when miraculous healings take place. There's a lot of people that are doing that in a way to make sure we shut off the mind, because unless the mind understands what's going on, then nothing will happen. So the mind won't be in alignment with the heart's need to provide for whatever the body needs. And the mind becomes a block because we'll misunderstand what this reality is. It's all just empty space. And everything around you is projecting some kind of unconscious energy. And that's what creates momentum, is unconsciousness. And the only way to really change momentum really quickly is to be more conscious and start shining like a bright star. That's why stars shine, because everything that's collapsing around the black hole at the center is changing its momentum so quickly and moving so fast that star shines really bright. I don't really have much else to say today other than I love you guys, and I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season. I don't think I'm going to do a masterclass next Friday. If I do, I might schedule it, but we'll see what happens. Might be on traveling or on the road, or picking my dad up. So every week for me is kind of take it day by day. But love you guys. Have a beautiful day, and we'll catch you on the next one. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you ever need help with anything, or maybe I'll need help from you, or if you have an idea for a new business model, I would love to talk to you about it. Or maybe the business you're working in could need some help. I'm always open to offer better structures for the way that we work together and love one another and receive together. So, love you guys. Have a great day.